Marcus Johnson woke up early that Monday morning with a feeling of excitement. Today was the day he would take the first step to finalize the biggest deal of his career, a $2.3 billion partnership between his company, Innovate Solutions, and Global Finance Group. He carefully picked out his best navy suit, the one he saved for important meetings. As he adjusted his red tie in the mirror, Marcus smiled, thinking about how far he had come. At 42, Marcus had built Innovate Solutions from nothing into a tech company now valued at over $500 million. Growing up in a small apartment with his mother, who worked 2 jobs, he had pushed himself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. Now he employed over 300 people, and this new partnership would create hundreds more jobs. "You've got this," Marcus said to himself as he grabbed his leather briefcase and car keys. He sent a quick text to his business partner, Diane Rodriguez. "Heading to the bank now. Meet you there at 10 for the final paperwork." Diane replied immediately, "Already on my way. This is a big day for us, Marcus." The morning was bright and clear as Marcus drove his black Tesla to First National Bank. He had chosen this particular branch because it was close to Global Finance Group's headquarters, where they would have their meeting later. He needed to deposit some checks and withdraw some cash before the big meeting. A simple errand on a life-changing day. When Marcus pulled into the bank's parking lot, he noticed it was busier than usual. Monday morning rush, he thought. He found a spot, checked his appearance one last time in the rearview mirror, and headed inside. The bank's interior was cool and quiet despite the number of people waiting in line. Soft music played overhead. Marcus got in line and checked his emails on his phone while he waited. Several people congratulated him on the upcoming partnership, which had been mentioned in that morning's business news. After a 10-minute wait, Marcus approached the counter. The teller, a white woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, was typing something into her computer. Her name tag read Heather Miller. She didn't look up when Marcus stood before her. "Good morning," Marcus said with a smile. Heather finally glanced up. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice flat. "I'd like to make a deposit and withdrawal, please," Marcus said, placing his checks on the counter. "I'll need to see some ID," Heather said, still not making eye contact. She continued typing as she waited. "Of course," Marcus replied. He reached into his wallet and pulled out his driver's license, sliding it across the counter to her. Heather picked up the ID and looked at it, then at Marcus, then back at the ID. Something in her expression changed. She placed the ID on the edge of the counter and went back to typing. A moment later, the ID slipped off the counter and fell to the floor between them. Marcus waited for her to pick it up, or at least apologize. She did neither. Instead, she continued typing as if nothing had happened. The bank suddenly seemed very quiet to Marcus. He could feel eyes on him from other customers in line. Heat rose to his face as he slowly bent down to retrieve his own ID from the floor. As he straightened up, Marcus noticed the bank manager, Peter Collins, standing nearby. Peter had seen what happened. Their eyes met briefly, but Peter quickly looked away and walked to his office without saying a word. Marcus took a deep breath. This wasn't the first time he had experienced this kind of treatment, but it still stung every time. Especially today, of all days. "Is there a problem?" Marcus asked Heather calmly. "No problem," Heather replied without looking up. "I just need to verify your account. It will be a moment." Marcus stood there silently as Heather processed his transaction at what seemed like an intentionally slow pace. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Diane wondering where he was. But he didn't check it. He felt rooted to the spot, caught between anger and disbelief. In the back of his mind, Marcus thought about the irony of the situation. In less than an hour, he was scheduled to meet with the executives of Global Finance Group, the parent company that owned this very bank. They were eager to partner with his company, to access the innovative financial software his team had developed. How would they feel if they knew how their employees treated potential partners? After what felt like an eternity, Heather finally handed him his receipt and cash. "Is there anything else?" she asked, already looking past him to the next customer. "No, thank you," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the emotion he felt inside. He placed his ID back in his wallet with deliberate care, tucked the cash and receipt into his suit pocket, and walked out of the bank. The bright sunlight outside felt jarring after the cool dimness of the bank. Marcus stood on the sidewalk for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then he remembered something his mother had taught him years ago. He pulled out his phone, opened the voice memo app, and quickly recorded every detail of the incident while it was fresh in his mind. He noted the time, the teller's name, the manager who had seen and done nothing, and exactly what had happened. He had learned that documentation was important in situations like this. As Marcus walked back to his car, he spotted Diane's red SUV pulling into the parking lot. She waved at him through the window, her face bright with excitement about their upcoming meeting. Marcus waved back, but his heart wasn't in it. Diane parked and hurried over to him. At 38, Diane was the marketing genius behind Innovate Solutions' rapid growth. Her energy and optimism balanced Marcus's more cautious approach to business. "Hey, you're done already? Great timing," Diane said. Then she noticed his expression. "Marcus, what's wrong?" Marcus looked back at the bank building, then at Diane. "Get in the car," he said quietly. "We need to talk." "But the meeting," Diane began. "We have time," Marcus cut in. "This is important." They got into Marcus's Tesla, and he told her what had happened inside the bank. Diane's smile faded as she listened. "That's unacceptable," she said when he finished. "Did you get her name? We should report this immediately." "I got everything," Marcus said, holding up his phone. "But I'm thinking bigger picture now." "What do you mean?" Marcus looked at the bank building again, then at the time on his dashboard. It was 9:45 a.m. Their meeting with Global Finance Group was scheduled for 10:30 a.m. "Global Finance owns this bank," he said slowly. "This is how their employees treat people who look like me. What does that say about the company culture? About their values?" Diane was quiet for a moment. "One employee doesn't represent an entire corporation," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "And the manager who saw and did nothing?" Marcus asked. "Look, we're about to enter into a long-term partnership worth billions. We need to know who we're getting into bed with." Diane nodded slowly. "So what do you want to do?" Marcus started. "Sell the car. Let's go back to the office. I need to think, and we need to talk to Kevin." Kevin Washington was their legal advisor and one of Marcus's oldest friends. As they drove away from First National Bank, Marcus couldn't help thinking how a simple errand had potentially changed the course of his company's future. What should have been a routine transaction had turned into something much more significant. And a partnership worth $2.3 billion now hung in the balance because a bank teller had thrown his ID on the floor. Back at the Innovate Solutions office, Marcus and Diane sat in the glass-walled conference room. The view of the city skyline stretched out before them, but neither was paying attention to it. Marcus had just finished playing the voice recording he made after the incident at the bank. "I still can't believe this happened today of all days," Diane said, shaking her head. She pulled out her tablet and canceled their meeting with Global Finance Group, sending a brief email about a sudden emergency. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I've been thinking about this the whole drive back. It's not just about what happened to me. It's about what it represents." The door opened, and Kevin Washington walked in. At 45, Kevin had been Marcus's friend since college, and now served as the company's chief legal advisor. His normally cheerful face was serious as he took a seat. "I got your message. What's this emergency about the Global Finance deal?" Diane looked at Marcus, who nodded. She pressed play on his phone, and they both watched Kevin's expression change as he listened to Marcus describe what had happened at the bank. When the recording ended, Kevin was quiet for a long moment. "Did anyone else see this happen?" "The bank manager saw everything," Marcus said. "He just walked away, and there were other customers in line behind me." "Do you have video?" Kevin asked. Marcus nodded. "I turned on my camera after I picked up my ID. It's not the whole incident, but it shows her attitude and the manager ignoring what was happening." "Smart," Kevin said. "Always document. Did you get her name?" "Heather Miller. Her name tag was Zuck." "Right there. And the manager's name is Peter Collins." Kevin took out his notebook and wrote down the names. First National Bank on Main Street, correct? Owned by Global Finance Group. He shook his head. The same company you're about to partner with. That's why I wanted to talk to you before the meeting, Marcus said. This deal is worth $2.3 billion. It would take Innovate to the next level. But I'm not sure I want to partner with a company that allows this kind of behavior. Diane looked concerned. Are we really considering walking away from this deal? We've been working on it for months. I know, Marcus said. But this is about more than money. It's about values. What does it say about global finance if this is how their employees treat people who look like me? Kevin tapped his pen against his notepad. From a legal standpoint, you have options. We could file a formal complaint against the bank. We could also use this as leverage in the partnership negotiations, demand better diversity training, policy changes, maybe even leadership changes at the bank level, or we could walk away entirely, Marcus added. The room fell silent as they all considered the weight of that option. Diane's phone buzzed with a message. It's Frank Bennett, she said, referring to the CEO of Global Finance Group. He wants to know why we canceled the meeting and if we can reschedule for tomorrow. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. The offices of Global Finance Group were visible in the distance, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Just this morning, he had been excited about the partnership, about what it would mean for his company and the hundreds of people who worked for him. Tell him we need 48 hours, Marcus said finally. We have some internal matters to discuss before moving forward. Diane typed the response and then looked up at Marcus. What are we going to do in those 48 hours? I want to do some research, Marcus replied. I want to know if what happened to me today was an isolated incident or part of a pattern. Kevin nodded. I'll reach out to some contacts, see if there have been any similar complaints against First National or other banks owned by Global Finance. And I'll call Sam and PR, Diane added. If we do decide to walk away from this deal, we'll need to be careful about how we frame it publicly. Sam. Kelly was their head of public relations, a former journalist who had joined Innovate Solutions 3 years ago. He had a knack for handling difficult situations with grace. By late afternoon, they had set up a small team to gather information. Marcus had shared the video with Sam and a few trusted members of his executive team. The response was unanimous. What had happened was clearly discriminatory and unacceptable. At 5 o'clock, Kevin returned to the conference room with a folder in his hand. His expression was grim. I've found 6 similar complaints against First National branches in the last year alone, he said, placing the folder on the table. All from Black or Latino customers, all describing similar treatment, dismissive behavior, unusual delays, extra scrutiny on transactions. Marcus wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still hurt. And how did the bank respond to these complaints? Form letters, promises to look into it. No real action that I can see. Diane, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke up. My friend Jackie works at Progressive Financial. She says they would be very interested in our technology if the Global Finance deal falls through. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Progressive Financial was Global Finance's biggest competitor. Have they reached out to you? Not directly, Diane admitted. But Jackie has mentioned it a few times. They've been watching our negotiations with Global Finance. Marcus's phone rang. It was Frank Bennett himself, the CEO of Global Finance Group. Marcus stared at the screen for a moment before answering. Frank, hello. Marcus, what's going on? Frank's voice was concerned. We had everything ready for the signing today. Is there a problem with the terms? Marcus took a deep breath. Something happened today that's made me reconsider our partnership. I need some time to think it through. There was a pause on the other end. Can you tell me what happened? Whatever it is, I'm sure we can work it out. Marcus looked at Kevin and Diane, who were both watching him intently. I visited one of your banks this morning, First National on Main Street. The service I received was problematic. Problematic how? Frank asked. I'd rather not get into details over the phone, Marcus said. But it's made me question whether Our companies share the same values. Frank's voice became more serious. Marcus, we've spent months negotiating this deal. It's worth billions to both our companies. Whatever happened at that branch, I assure you, it doesn't reflect our corporate values. That's what I need to determine, Marcus replied. Give me 48 hours, Frank. I'll call you then with my decision. After he hung up, Diane looked at him with concern. Are you really considering walking away from this deal? Marcus nodded slowly. I built this company from nothing. Every step of the way, I've had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously. I've had to swallow my pride, more times than I can count. But I promised myself that once I had real power in the business world, I would use it to make things better, not just for myself, but for others who look like me. Kevin leaned forward. Whatever you decide, we're with you. But you should know that walking away from this deal will have consequences. The board might push back. Shareholders might get nervous. I know, Marcus said, but some things are more important than money. As evening fell, Marcus sat alone in his office looking at the photograph on his desk. It showed his mother on the day he graduated from college. She had worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads after his father died. She had taught him to stand up for himself, but also to be strategic about when and how to fight his battles. Marcus picked up his phone and called her. Hey, Mom, he said when she answered. Marcus. I was just reading about your big deal in the business section. I'm so proud of you, son. Marcus smiled sadly. About that deal, I might be walking away from it. Why? What happened? Marcus told her about the incident at the bank. When he finished, there was silence on the other end. Mom, are you still there? I'm here, she said quietly. I'm just thinking about how some things never change. Your father would face the same thing, and that was 40 years ago. What do you think I should do? Marcus asked. His mother sighed. I can't tell you that, son. But I raised you to know the difference between right and wrong, and I raised you to stand up for what you believe in, even when it costs you something. After they hung up, Marcus sat in the darkening office, thinking about the choice ahead of him. By this time tomorrow, he would need to decide whether to move forward with the partnership or walk away from $2.3 billion. Either way, nothing would be the same again. Morning light streamed through the windows of Innovate Solutions as Marcus arrived early. He had barely slept, his mind still working through the decision he needed to make. The lobby was quiet, but he wasn't the first one there. Diane was already in the conference room, her laptop open and a half-empty coffee cup beside her. You're here early, Marcus said as he joined her. Diane looked up. There were dark circles under her eyes. Couldn't sleep. I've been running the numbers all night, looking at what happens if we walk away from the global finance deal. And? We'll survive, she said, turning her laptop so he could see the spreadsheet. It will set us back about 6 months in terms of growth. We'll need to cut some of the expansion plans, but the company will be fine. Marcus nodded, relieved. What about the investors? They won't be happy, Diane admitted. But most of them invested because they believe in you and what we're building. If you explain your reasons, I think most will stand by us. The door opened and Sam Kelly, their head of public relations, walked in. He was carrying a thick folder. Morning, he said, placing the folder on the table. I've been working on potential responses depending on which way you decide to go. Marcus picked up the folder. You've been busy. That's my job, Sam replied with a small smile. But before you look at those, there's something else you should see. He pulled out his tablet and opened a social media app. This was posted late last night by a former employee of First National Bank. Marcus and Diane leaned in to read the post. It was from a woman named Lisa Grant, who had worked at First National for 3 years before quitting 6 months ago. She described a culture of casual racism and discrimination that was ignored or even encouraged by management. She mentioned Peter Collins by name as someone who had told her to stop making a fuss when she reported problems. This is going viral, Sam said. It's been shared thousands of times already. She doesn't mention you or what happened yesterday, but the timing is interesting. Can we contact her? Marcus asked. Sam nodded. I've already sent her a message. She's willing to talk. Kevin arrived next, carrying his own stack of papers. I've got more, he said without preamble. 3 former employees willing to speak about discriminatory practices at First National, and 7 more customer complaints that were never addressed. Marcus felt a mix of vindication and sadness. So what happened to me wasn't unusual. No, Kevin confirmed. It's a pattern, and it goes all the way up to regional management. By 9 o'clock, the entire executive team had gathered in the conference room. Marcus stood at the head of the table, looking at the 10 people who had helped him build Innovate Solutions. They were a diverse group, men and women of different races and backgrounds. That had been intentional from the start. Marcus believed that diversity made the company stronger, brought different perspectives and ideas to the table. I've asked you all here because I'm facing a difficult decision, Marcus began. As you know, we were set to sign a $2.3 billion partnership agreement with Global Finance Group yesterday. He paused, then played the recording he had made after the incident at the bank. The room was silent as they listened. When it ended, he showed them the video clip as well. This happened at First National Bank, which is owned by Global Finance Group, Marcus explained. Since then, we've discovered evidence that this was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of discriminatory behavior. He nodded to Kevin, who distributed copies of the complaints and testimonials they had gathered. I need to decide by this afternoon whether to proceed with the partnership or walk away, Marcus continued. It's a decision that will affect all of us and the future of this company. I want your honest opinions. For the next hour, they discussed the situation. Some argued that they could use the partnership to push for change from within Global Finance. Others felt that partnering with a company that allowed such behavior would compromise Innovate's values. The debate was respectful but intense. During a short break, Marcus's phone rang. It was Frank Bennett, the CEO of Global Finance Group. Marcus, Frank said when he answered. I hope you've had time to reconsider. Our board is getting nervous about the delay. I'm still considering my options, Frank, Marcus replied. I'll call you this afternoon as promised. Before you make any decisions, Frank said quickly, I want you to know that I've looked into what happened at First National. The teller has been suspended pending an investigation. We're taking this very seriously. Marcus frowned. How did you know which branch it was? Or which teller? There was a pause on the other end. We have ways of tracking these things, Frank said vaguely. The point is we're addressing the situation. Too little, too late, Marcus thought, but he kept that to himself. I'll call you this afternoon, Frank. After hanging up, Marcus rejoined the meeting. He shared Frank's call with the team. They're in damage control mode, Sam observed. They must have figured out what happened and they're trying to get ahead of it. But how did they know which teller, Diane wondered. Marcus never told Frank those details. Kevin's expression darkened. They must have been looking at security footage from all their branches trying to spot Marcus. That's concerning. Just then, Sam's tablet pinged with a news alert. He looked down at it, then let out a low whistle. You're going to want to see this, he said, passing the tablet to Marcus. It was a news article that had just been published online. The headline read, Tech CEO accuses bank of racial discrimination. 2.3B deal in jeopardy. Marcus read the article quickly. It didn't name him or Innovate Solutions directly, but it described a prominent black tech CEO who had experienced discrimination at a bank owned by Global Finance Group, putting a multi-billion-dollar partnership at risk. Who leaked this? Marcus demanded, looking around the table. Everyone shook their heads, looking as surprised as he was. It wasn't us, Sam assured him. But this changes things. Once the press gets hold of a story like this, it takes on a life of its own. As if, to prove his point, Marcus's phone began ringing. It was a number he didn't recognize. Then Diane's phone rang too. And Kevin's. Reporters, Sam guessed. They'll be trying to confirm the story. Marcus silenced his phone and set it down. We need to make a decision now. The longer we wait, the more this spins out of control. He looked around the table at the faces of his team. I built this company on 2 principles, innovation and integrity, The partnership with Global Finance would help us grow faster, but at what cost to our integrity? The room was quiet as everyone waited for him to continue. I've made my decision, Marcus said finally. We're walking away from the deal. There were nods around the table. No one looked surprised. Sam, prepare a statement. Keep it simple. We've decided not to move forward with the partnership due to irreconcilable differences in corporate values. No mention of the incident at the bank. Sam nodded and started typing notes. Diane, contact Progressive Financial. See if they're still interested in our technology. Diane smiled. Already on it? Kevin, I want you to file a formal complaint against First National Bank. Use all the evidence we've gathered. Kevin nodded grimly. With pleasure. Marcus looked around at his team once more. This won't be easy. There will be questions, speculation. The stock might take a hit in the short term, but I believe we're doing the right thing. As the meeting broke up and everyone went to carry out their tasks, Marcus stayed behind in the conference room. He took out his phone and dialed Frank Bennett's number. Marcus, Frank answered immediately. Tell me you're not walking away from this deal. I'm sorry, Frank, Marcus said. But that's exactly what I'm doing. Our companies don't share the same values. It's that simple. This is about what happened at the bank, isn't it? Frank's voice had an edge to it now. Look, I told you we're handling it. The teller has been suspended. What more do you want? It's not about one teller or one incident, Frank. It's about a pattern of behavior that your company has allowed or even encouraged. That's not something I can overlook no matter how much money is on the table. You're making a mistake, Frank warned. Our lawyers will review the preliminary agreements. There could be penalties for backing out at this stage. Do what you have to do, Marcus replied calmly. We'll do the same. After hanging up, Marcus sat alone in the quiet conference room. He thought about all the work that had gone into the Global Finance deal. The late nights, the negotiations, the plans they had made. All of it was gone now. But as he looked out at the city skyline, Marcus felt a strange sense of peace. Money would come and go. Deals would be made and broken. But his integrity, his self-respect, those were priceless. And today, he had stood up not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been treated the way he had been treated in that bank. His phone pinged with a message. It was from his mother. Whatever you decided, I'm proud of you. Marcus smiled and typed back, I walked away from the deal. It was the right thing to do. Her reply came seconds later. That's my boy. The news of Innovate Solutions walking away from the Global Finance deal spread like wildfire through the business world. By the next morning, it was the lead story on all the financial news channels. Global Finance's stock had dropped 12% in a single day, wiping billions off its market value. Investors were panicking and the company's board was in emergency meetings. Marcus watched the coverage from his office, feeling strangely detached from the storm he had created. He had issued a simple statement as planned, citing only irreconcilable differences in corporate values as the reason for ending the partnership talks. He had refused all requests for interviews, maintaining a dignified silence that only fueled more speculation. Diane knocked on his door and entered without waiting for a response. You need to see this, she said, turning on the TV mounted on his wall. The screen showed Frank Bennett, CEO of Global Finance Group, at a hastily arranged press conference. He looked tired and stressed, his usual confident smile nowhere to be seen. Global Finance Group remains committed to diversity and inclusion at all levels of our organization, Frank was saying. The suggestion that we would tolerate any form of discrimination is completely false. We have strict policies in place. But what about the allegations from former employees of First National Bank? A reporter interrupted. Several have come forward claiming a pattern of discriminatory behavior that was ignored by management. Frank's face tightened. We are investigating those claims. If there have been failures at the branch level, we will address them. But I want to be clear. Those incidents, if they occurred, do not reflect the values of Global Finance Group. Another reporter jumped in. Mr. Bennett, is it true that Innovate Solutions walked away from a $2.3 billion partnership because of a racial incident at one of your banks? Frank's expression hardened. I'm not going to comment on the specific reasons for the end of our negotiations with Innovate Solutions. As their statement indicated, we had differences in corporate values. That's all I'll say on the matter. Diane muted the TV. They're in full damage control mode, but they're still not admitting what really happened. Marcus nodded. They won't unless they're forced to. Their lawyers would never allow it. It would open them up to lawsuits. Speaking of which, Diane said, Kevin filed the formal complaint against First National this morning. He included all the evidence we gathered, including your video and the testimonials from former employees. Good, Marcus replied. What about Progressive Financial? Any word from them? Diane smiled for the first time that day. Yes, actually. Their CEO, Laura Wilson, called me personally an hour ago. They're very interested in our technology. She wants to meet with us tomorrow. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That was fast. They've been watching us for months, apparently. They knew we were in talks with Global Finance and were waiting to see what happened. Laura said they're prepared to offer us terms that are at least as favorable as what Global Finance was offering, including the diversity benchmarks and cultural sensitivity requirements we wanted. Especially those, Diane confirmed. In fact, Laura mentioned that Progressive has won awards for their diversity initiatives. She seemed eager to show us how seriously they take these issues. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Set up the meeting, but let's keep it quiet for now. I don't want this to look like we already had a backup plan. Just then, Marcus's phone rang. It was his assistant, Olivia. Mr. Johnson, there's a Heather Miller, here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent. Marcus and Diane exchanged surprised looks. Heather Miller was the bank teller who had thrown his ID on the floor. Send her in, Marcus said after a moment's hesitation. Minute later, Olivia opened the door and Heather Miller walked in. She looked different from how Marcus remembered her. Smaller somehow, less confident. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying. Mr. Johnson, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus gestured to a chair. Please sit down. This is Diane Rodriguez, my business partner. Heather sat stiffly on the edge of the chair. I know who you are, she said to Diane. I've seen your pictures in the business news. She took a deep breath. I came here to apologize for how I treated you at the bank, Mr. Johnson. It was wrong and I'm deeply sorry. Marcus studied her face, trying to gauge her sincerity. What prompted this apology, Ms. Miller? The fact that you've been suspended? Or the fact that your behavior cost your company billions of dollars? Heather flinched at his directness. I deserve that, she admitted. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I've spent the last 2 days thinking about what I did and why I did it. And I'm ashamed. She paused as if gathering courage. The truth is, I didn't even realize what I was doing in the moment. It was automatic. And that's what scares me the most. I never thought of myself as a racist person, but my actions that day. Her voice trailed off. Actions speak louder than words, Ms. Miller, Diane said, her tone cool. I know. Heather replied, that's why I'm here in person. I wanted you to see my face when I tell you how sorry I am. And I wanted to tell you that I've already filed a statement with your lawyer, Mr. Washington, confirming exactly what happened that day. Marcus leaned forward, surprised. You spoke to Kevin? Heather nodded. This morning, I told him everything, including things I've seen other employees do to customers of color. And I told him about Mr. Collins, the manager who saw what happened and did nothing. He's been telling us for years to give extra scrutiny to certain customers. We all knew what he meant. Why are you telling us this? Diane asked, still suspicious. Because it's the right thing to do, Heather said simply. And because I need to be accountable for my actions. She looked directly at Marcus. What I did was wrong. I can't change it, but I can own it. And I can try to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He had not expected this. He had been prepared for legal, battles for denials and counter-accusations. He had not been prepared for a genuine apology. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Miller," he said finally. "It took courage." Heather shook her head. "Not as much courage as it took for you to walk away from billions of dollars on principle." She stood up to leave. "I've already been fired, by the way. Not suspended, fired, but I'm not contesting it. I deserved it." After she left, Marcus and Diane sat in silence for a few minutes. "That was unexpected," Diane said eventually. "Yes," Marcus agreed, "but encouraging. Change happens one person at a time." The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. By evening, Marcus was exhausted. He was about to leave the office when Sam Kelly, his head of PR, appeared at his door. "One more thing before you go," Sam said. "I've been monitoring social media all day. There's a hashtag trending, Just Banking While Black. Thousands of people are sharing their own stories of discrimination at banks across the country." He showed Marcus his tablet, scrolling through post after post of people describing similar experiences to what Marcus had faced. "This is bigger than just global finance or First National," Sam continued. "You've sparked a national conversation." Marcus scrolled through the posts, reading story after story. Some were from decades ago, others from just last week. All described the same pattern of disrespect, suspicion, and unequal treatment. "We should do something with this," Marcus said slowly. "Not just move on to a new banking partner and forget it happened?" "Like what?" Sam asked. Marcus thought for a moment. "What if we created a platform, a place where people could report these incidents, get legal advice, push for accountability? We have the technology to build it." Sam's eyes lit up. "I like it. It fits with our company values, and it would turn this whole situation into something positive." "Work up a proposal," Marcus told him. "We'll discuss it with the team tomorrow." Later that night, as Marcus drove home, his phone rang through his car speakers. It was Frank Bennett again. "Marcus," Frank said, his voice tired. "I've been trying to reach you all day." "I've been busy, Frank." "I'm sure you have," Frank replied. "Look, I'll get right to the point. Our stock is in free fall. The board is panicking. We need to fix this." "How do you propose to do that?" Marcus asked. "Come back to the table," Frank said. "We can renegotiate the partnership. We'll meet all your demands about diversity initiatives. We'll clean house at First National. New management, new training programs, whatever you want." Marcus was tempted. The partnership would still benefit Innovate Solutions enormously. And if global finance was truly willing to change, "I appreciate the offer, Frank," he said carefully, "but it's too late. We've already scheduled meetings with Progressive Financial." Frank swore under his breath. "Marcus, be reasonable. We're talking about billions of dollars here." "Yes, we are," Marcus agreed. "But we're also talking about something more important, human dignity. You had years to address these issues, Frank. It shouldn't have taken a PR crisis to make you care." After he hung up, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had made the right decision. Money would come and go, but integrity was forever. And sometimes, standing up for what was right created ripples that went far beyond one person or one incident. As the hashtag trending on social media showed, his experience had given others the courage to speak up too. That was worth more than any business. 6 months had passed since the day Marcus Johnson walked into First National Bank and had his ID thrown on the floor. In that time, much had changed. Innovate Solutions had signed a $3.1 billion partnership deal with Progressive Financial, surpassing what global finance had offered. The deal included strict requirements for diversity and inclusion, with financial penalties if those benchmarks weren't met. Marcus sat in his office looking at the latest quarterly report. The company was thriving. Their new banking app, developed in partnership with Progressive Financial, had just passed 5 million users. The stock price was at an all-time high. Diane walked in without knocking, as usual. "Ready for the board meeting?" Marcus nodded and gathered his papers. "Any surprises I should know about?" "Just good ones," Diane replied with a smile. "The Banking Equality platform has over 50,000 registered users now, and we've helped file more than 200 formal complaints against discriminatory practices." The Banking Equality platform had been Marcus's idea, born the night he learned about the Coincer banking while black hashtag. The platform allowed users to report incidents of discrimination at financial institutions, connect with legal help, and track patterns of behavior across different banks. It had grown beyond anything Marcus had imagined, becoming a powerful tool for accountability in the banking industry. "What about the class action lawsuit against Global Finance?" Marcus asked as they walked to the boardroom. "The judge certified it last week," Diane said. "Over 300 plaintiffs now. Kevin thinks they'll settle rather than go to trial." Kevin Washington had left Innovate Solutions 3 months ago to work full-time on the lawsuit against Global Finance Group. He was representing former customers and employees who had experienced discrimination at Global Finance banks across the country. What had started as Marcus's individual complaint had grown into one of the largest discrimination lawsuits in banking history. The board meeting went smoothly. The members were pleased with the company's performance and excited about the future. Even those who had initially questioned Marcus's decision to walk away from the Global Finance deal were now fully supportive. The partnership with Progressive Financial had proven to be not just morally right, but financially smart as well. After the meeting, Marcus returned to his office to find Sam Kelly waiting for him. Sam had a strange expression on his face. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Sam handed him a tablet. "This just went viral. A junior employee at First National Bank posted it anonymously, but it's spreading like crazy." Marcus looked at the screen. It was a blog post titled, "What Really Happened? The True Story of How One Bank Teller's Actions Cost Global Finance $2.3 billion. The post detailed everything that had happened that day at the bank, including things Marcus himself hadn't known, about what went on behind the scenes. According to the post, after Marcus left the bank that day, Peter Collins, the manager, had immediately called regional headquarters to report that the CEO of Innovate Solutions had been in the branch and seemed upset. The regional manager had called Global Finance's corporate office, and word had quickly reached Frank Bennett. Frank had ordered security footage from the branch to be reviewed, which was how he had known about Heather Miller before Marcus mentioned her name. But instead of addressing the discrimination immediately, Frank and his team had decided to pretend it never happened and hoped the partnership would proceed anyway. The post also revealed that after the deal collapsed, there had been a massive cover-up attempt at Global Finance. Employees at First National were told to stay silent. Heather Miller had been fired and made to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Peter Collins had been quietly transferred to a smaller branch in another state. "This explains a lot," Marcus said as he finished reading. "No wonder Frank knew so many details when he called me." "There's more," Sam said. "Keep scrolling." Marcus scrolled down to find screenshots of internal emails from Global Finance executives discussing the incident. In one particularly damaging email, a senior VP suggested they should find dirt on Johnson to discredit him if he goes public. "These emails look authentic," Marcus said, frowning. "They are," Sam confirmed. "Our IT team verified them. This whistleblower had access to everything." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "They were planning to attack me personally rather than address the real issue. The good news is they never got the chance," Sam pointed out. "You kept the high ground by not mentioning the specific incident in your public statements. That frustrated them to no end, according to these emails." Marcus's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Marcus Johnson," he answered. "Mr. Johnson, this is Linda Patterson from the Wall Street Journal. We're running a story on the Global Finance whistleblower post. Would you care to comment?" Marcus caught Sam's eye, and Sam gave him a nod. "Yes, Ms. Patterson, I would. The post confirms what we've known all along, that what happened to me at First National Bank that day was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of behavior that was tolerated or even encouraged by management. It's disappointing, but not surprising, that Global Finance chose to cover it up, rather than address it directly. Would you be willing to finally share your side of what happened that day?" the reporter asked eagerly. Marcus thought for a moment. "Yes, I think it's time. But this isn't just about me. It's about every person who has ever been treated with disrespect or suspicion because of the color of their skin. The Banking Equality platform we created has collected thousands of similar stories. This is a systemic issue that requires systemic change. After finishing the interview, Marcus called Kevin to warn him about the whistleblower post and how it might affect the lawsuit. Kevin was ecstatic. The emails would strengthen their case enormously. Later that afternoon, Marcus received another unexpected call. It was from Larry Davis, the new CEO of Global Finance Group. Frank Bennett had been forced to resign 3 months ago as the company's stock continued to fall and pressure from shareholders mounted. "Mr. Johnson," Larry began formally, "I won't take much of your time. I just wanted you to know that Global Finance will be announcing a comprehensive plan tomorrow to address racial bias within our organization. We've been working on it for months, consulting with diversity experts and listening to our employees and customers." "That's good to hear," Marcus replied cautiously. "We should have done this long ago," Larry admitted. "What happened to you at our bank was inexcusable. On behalf of Global Finance Group, I want to formally apologize." Marcus was silent for a moment, taken aback by the unexpected apology. "I appreciate that, Mr. Davis. It's a step in the right direction. We'd also like to make a substantial donation to the Banking Equality Platform," Larry continued. "No strings attached. The work you're doing is important and we want to support it." After the call, Marcus sat at his desk, thinking about how much had changed in 6 months. One small moment, a bank teller throwing his ID on the floor, had set off a chain of events that was now transforming an entire industry. What had started as a personal humiliation had become a movement for accountability and change. His phone buzzed with a text message from his mother. "Just saw you on the news. So proud of you. Your father would be too." Marcus smiled and texted back, "Thanks, Mom. Still more work to do." That evening, as Marcus drove home, he passed by the First National Bank where it had all started. The sign had been changed. It was now a progressive financial branch. He thought about stopping in but decided against it. That chapter of his life was closed. Instead, he drove to his mother's house for dinner, as he did every Friday night. She opened the door before he could knock, wrapping him in a warm hug. "There he is," she said proudly, "the man who stood up to a giant." Marcus smiled and followed her inside. "I just did what you taught me, Mom. Stand up for what's right even when it cost you something." She patted his cheek affectionately. "And look what happened. You didn't lose anything. You gained something much more valuable than money." As they sat down to eat, Marcus thought about all the people who had shared their stories on the Banking Equality Platform. People who had been silenced for years but now had a voice. People who were standing up and demanding to be treated with dignity and respect. His mother was right. By walking away from that $2.3 billion deal, he hadn't lost anything important. Instead, he had gained something priceless. The knowledge that one person standing up for what was right could inspire others to do the same. And together, they could change the world, one bank at a time.